here filming at Silverstone, looking ahead to the British Grand Prix. I'm joined by Richard, I'm joined by Joe. Bros, talk to me, how are we feeling? We're here.
It's good, man. Home race coming up.
Yeah.
What a big week. It's, I love it. I love the British Grand Prix.
100%. How does it feel?
Well, look, Carlos Sainz's last win, in and only win. This time last year, we're going for the double. Let's go.
Listen, we got famous corners here. We've got, Beckett's, we've got, Cops, we've got Maggot. Like, talk to me about this track, and obviously it's a little bit windy right now as well. I'm feeling that.
This place is always windy. Honestly, every time you come here, it's always 10 degrees colder than the rest of the country. Every time. And to be honest, you talk about that wind, and that's one of the first problems the drivers have to face.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the change of direction and being such a high-speed circuit, corners like Cops, Maggots and Beckett's, etc., that wind is going to have a huge effect, and it's going to cause a lot of unpredictability. It's why quite often you see drivers losing the cars suddenly in the high-speed S's and stuff like that. So yeah, it's going to be a factor, no question.
When we're looking at a track like this as well, obviously high speed and potential for a lot of drama, because and we've got a lot of British drivers on the grid as well. But you spoke about Carlos Sainz winning here. Verstappen's never won here.
Yeah.
Does that add a little bit something extra for you? As a Ferrari fan, you know what it's like to win here. Verstappen not won here. We've got British drivers.
That's exciting. Max, completely dominating it so far this season, and will be desperate to get his hands. I mean, this is such an iconic track, and with the likes of like Monaco, it's sort of that level. When was it built? 1930s,
Like in the 30s, yeah.
I mean, insane. Lewis has won here 8 times, so he's going to want to go and make it 9.
Maybe get 9 this week.
I mean, that's a ridiculous number, man.
But that's insane. As you say,
an obscene
8
number.
times.
Yeah.
To win here is out of this world, and Max is absolutely going to want to go and do something. Don't forget the big crash that they had here. Was it 21?
21, yeah.
Huge crash. They're still arguing about who has the line.
Still debris.
It was amazing, because I was watching. We're in the BRDC clubhouse now, and I was watching here. And obviously they go past us at Woodcote down to Cops. And I tell you, you've never heard a crowd louder than that when they crashed. Like the gasp, and all of these stands were just in complete shock.
Yeah.
And then once people realised Max got out of the car, there was this huge cheer for when he was okay. But then when they realised that Lewis had a chance to win and everything.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool about this place as well. The British fans, they just do something with the atmosphere. You know what we're like. We put on parties better than anybody else. Let's be honest,
You've obviously driven here as well. Talk to me about. Actually, I want to ask you first of all, what do you think your lap time is in comparison to the Formula One drivers? How far off are you? Are you in the mix?
In the same car or in my cars?
In the same car, given the same tools.
What a question.
You put me on the spot.
What kind of lap time are we looking at from you in comparison to
What's the lap record off the top of it? Is it a 1?
I think it's a 27? 27, 28, something like that. I mean, I raced against quite a bit of the F1 grid. My first race was actually against Carlos Sainz. And I qualified pole and he qualified second. And he was
I'm that Ferrari!
I got a new favourite.
And he was.
And he's wearing Aston Martin as well today. So.
And it was our first races. He was second to me in both races. So, but honestly, every driver who's at the pinnacle of their discipline is very, very good. To just jump into a Formula One car and be on their pace right now, I'd need time, 100%. You need time, but we'd all be within a certain level, and I think it would be the same if they came to the discipline that I did as well. They'd need time to adapt and get used to it, but then no question they'd be on the pace. So I wouldn't like to put into a number, but to put into a number to show how quick Formula One cars are around here, the fastest ever lap time I'd done around Silverstone has been a 1:39.5. So
wow, 12 seconds.
12 seconds slower than a Formula One.
And what car was that in?
That was in a Peugeot LMP1 car.
So it's still quick, isn't it?
Yeah, seriously quick. It gets your attention.
That's a single-seater, isn't it?
No, that's a Le Mans prototype.
Okay.
850 horsepower.
Jesus,
it has, 1,500 newton meters of torque. It goes. It really goes.
Oh my God.
I'm stunned. Just taken aback by that. So obviously coming into this race as well, we've got. I mean, actually, what's you guys' favourite corner? I feel like I have to ask that because we've got some legendary corners here before we get into the teams and where they're going to line up. Which one's your favourite corner?
I mean, it's impossible to write off Maggots and Beckett, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just so good. I mean, I came last year, I was just in general admissions. We arrived at 6 a.m. in my own little camping chair. I was literally sitting right over there and was on the Wellington Straight, which was amazing. Incredible day out. No hospitality or anything like that. Trying to hold a wee so that you don't lose your seat. It was great. So much fun. So I've got a bit of affiliation with the Wellington Straight, and then obviously Maggots and Beckett is just so good. But I mean, it's just that...
You felt that atmosphere as well, I guess.
Oh, the atmosphere is incredible. And the great thing about it here is that it's not just like there's one place to to overtake.
Yeah.
It's not if you miss that overtaking spot, you have to wait another a minute 27 until they come and do it again. There's so many chances and little places to overtake that every corner is good. There's nothing bad about this track. It's incredible.
I think you're right there. I'm going to go for something slightly out of field. If I'm in a really powerful car, like something that would be a Formula One car or a top-line sports car, something like that, I'm actually going to say Luffield Corner, which is over there. And
nice.
the reason why is because with that corner, it's all about setting yourself up for the old start-finish straight. And you have to get on power so early. And the corner's actually incredibly tight. And all of a sudden you get on and the full power comes in and you've still got a lot of corner left to do and the rear tyres are screaming and you need to keep that foot down because otherwise you're not going to get the run down the straight. But there's gravel on the exit of the corner. So your rear's coming round and you're trying to flirt kind of with the edge of really, really screwing up. And I tell you, you'll see a few drivers kick it up, especially in qualifying. But that corner is 10 times harder than it looks. But Copse is magical. There's so many good corners here, honestly.
There is. And actually, speaking of, the fact that you just mentioned that now reminded me about the amount of penalties from the previous race in terms of track limits. And I wanted to get your take on it because there was over 1,200 track limit breaches in that race, not from the weekend, from the race. Right? We did the podcast on the Monday. We went through it, and it's really small print. Couldn't go through each penalty. We didn't have the time.
Crazy.
But what did you make of that? Is that an issue with the track? Because I don't really remember ever feeling like there was that issue before.
I mean, the first thing is with the Red Bull Ring is that most of the corners where they were having the track limit issues are actually downhill and blind. And when a corner is downhill, because you don't naturally have the weight on the front of the car, there's always more understeer. So it's actually very hard to bring it back. And also, you can't believe how difficult it is to see those white lines. Especially as the race goes on, the white lines get rubber on them. So they become the same, they blend into the same colour as the tarmac. So it gets harder and harder to see them. And it looks slightly amateurish what happened, when you think these guys are the best in the world. And honestly, I kind of sympathise with them because that Red Bull Ring, you turn into the corner, you can't see the exit and you're committed. And it's going to understeer and you just kind of have to hope. And then you end up not being able to see it. But we come to Silverstone and there's still a few track limit places here. One place which is very good for it is Copse Corner. But again, because it has this tendency to understeer on the exit. So I think that's going to be the one place to watch. It's going to be nowhere near as bad as Austria though.
Yeah, let's talk about Red Bull because obviously there's a little bit of tension between Perez and Verstappen because, someone got pushed onto the grass. I'm not going to say who, but I think it's about time that elbows were out. And listen, I've seen Max do it quite a few times in his career. So it was nice to see Checo actually step up and say, listen, I'm going to be just like you. It didn't work out because Max still ended up winning anyway, but there was a little bit of tension. Then Horner was quick to knock it back and say, actually, no, everybody's fine.
But he was stirring the pot before.
He was.
In qualifying, Horner was going, what do you say? Checo, just keep it in the white lines. Like, he was stirring the pot as much as, and then typical Horner. I actually love him, to be fair. He's hilarious.
Then downplayed it, of course, as he would. And then obviously now, as we come into the weekend, like I said, Max is aiming for his first win. Where do you think? But Checo can take a lot of confidence from the fact that he came from 15th all the way up into the podium spot. So where do you think that leaves the Red Bulls now? Are we finally going to get a potential 1-2 where Perez is really actually pushing at the front of the grid where he should be in this kind of track?
I think that Perez is actually going to do surprisingly well here. Because if we go back to, when we did the podcast on the Ultimate Driver, the one thing that Sergio Perez is really good at is looking after his tyres. And Silverstone is a famously high degradation circuit. Pirelli brought along the hard compound tyres for this weekend. And honestly, I think that's really going to play into his hands. Now, obviously, Max is another enigma at the minute, and it's going to be hard. But if there's 2 races on the calendar, I can see Perez's strengths coming in. It's Bahrain and here because the degradation is just so high.
Okay,
interesting. I wanted to ask you about the deg. Actually, what is it about? Because it is such a high deg. It's famous for it, but what is it about the circuit that makes it so high deg?
It's just the load that the tyres get put on because the average speed of the corners is just so fast. I mean, the poor tyres. I don't know if you've ever seen the slow motion shots, but you can actually see the tyre flexing, which is insane. And you think that those poor things have to put up with that much load. And when you're at other fast circuits like Monza, it's not so bad because the corners are all slow, so it's just on the straights. But here, Copse is going to be 160, 170 miles an hour, Maggots and Beckett's, and that's in race trim. So just the rubber wears off faster. So here in Spa, when you actually look at the energy that's put through the tyre from the corners, Spa and here are the worst.
Interesting.
And so because of that, the leg is always really, really high.
Are we going to get an imbalance on that? Maybe the right side is going to take more of a hit, do you think?
Normally it's the left side which would take more of a hit, because it's the outside tyres which are actually the more stressed, because the force loads up that side of the tyre. And obviously Silverstone's a clockwise circuit. So for example, if you go to Austin, which is anti-clockwise, it's the right side tyres that take the most hit. But again, it's a bit of a balance here, because you still got massively fast corners which are lefts and rights. And also you've got very, very hard traction zones whilst accelerating. We spoke about Luffield, we've got the last corner at Club. So there's a lot of general stress, and I wouldn't be surprised, even with the hard tyre, if we see quite a few different strategies this weekend.
Interesting. And as you say, Perez is very, very good on the tyres, bringing it back to that. I think Max is probably still too good and will win it. But his
first win.
Look, if Perez ever needed a good race, Jesus Christ, he needs a good race. Well, actually, he needs a good qualifying. As you say, the race was okay.
Traditional qualifying this weekend.
He just needs to just do the basics right. It's my motto for life.
Keeping Checo in check.
Yeah, correct.
Perez patrol. These are the two things that I've actually started bringing to the table now in terms of Perez.
Yeah, I agree, Richard. I think I can very much see him doing a 1-2.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's quite likely.
Prediction there, but I'll ask
a little bit.
Yeah. So now on to Mercedes. Obviously, we've got Hamilton, we've got George Russell coming off the back of a disappointing weekend in Austria. Now, this is the home track of the team. This is the home track of the two drivers. Surely we got to get a British driver on the podium. I know you're not going to like to hear that as a Ferrari fan, but this is what I need.
I'm not anti it.
What I need. Is it? Do I have a chance?
Yeah, I think you got a chance. I mean, Lewis always just has this habit of performing here. You know, I mean, historically, what is it? Is it 8 wins?
8 wins.
8 wins. And he's won here so many times. He won here on the old track before they changed it to the new version. You know, so. He always just does something special here. So I think Lewis is going to be pretty strong here. And to be honest, I'd actually be interested to see how close George can get to Lewis around here, because this has always been one of Lewis's strongest tracks. You know, and it really is the home race for Mercedes. They're literally 10 minutes drive away from this place.
Yeah, and they've got upgrades coming to the W14 as well. So we're expecting performance, because obviously last week, like I said, there was nothing to write home about.
Particularly George.
Like for George,
again,
kind of like, race.
Not as bad as Checo. But it feels a little bit like he's kind of heading that way, with Lewis doing such a better job in the Merc. Yeah, I think Lewis could sneak into a third position. I'd love to see that.
And hopefully pick up the pieces if Max and Checo renew their fights from Austria, you know, and see what happens.
George was saying he felt like the car was moving around a lot in Austria and it wasn't quite what he wanted it to be, so he's looking for improvements, looking for extra pace there. Obviously Aston Martin,
New allegiance.
Yeah, talk to me about your team. You got Alonso, you got Stroll. Stroll out-qualified Alonso, didn't he?
He did.
And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Whoa, I wasn't expecting that. That never happens.
But I mean, we talk about home races, like Mercedes are close, but Aston Martin are like,
see it.
It's literally opposite the roundabout of the main entrance. You know, so this is really the home race. Which, you know, if they bought a load of upgrades this weekend, you know, they might even be able to bring some as the weekend goes on, you know.
That's so interesting, actually,
Because they haven't got to worry about the travel time or anything like that.
They can literally just go out front and just go get some extra parts and come back to the garage.
But you know, it's just nice to see that. Okay, he wasn't there as much in the Red Bull ring, but you know, to have Alonso taking the fight to the Red Bulls, like we saw in Canada, like we've seen so many times this year. You know, to actually see that, and also it's good because it's somebody who we don't expect. It's not your Mercedes or anything like that. But honestly, I can't see Aston Martin really being ahead of Mercedes this weekend. If I'm perfectly honest, I think Lewis especially just brings something too good out. You know.
Again, it's lovely to see. I think they'll have a lot of support, Aston Martin, this weekend. Huge support being a British team. And as you say, you drive in, you see the Aston Martin where they build the car. It's amazing. Like, so cool. I agree. They've also got upgrades coming this weekend, Aston. But as you say, I think Mercedes will just have something up their sleeve. They've kind of been watermarking this weekend as like quite a big weekend upgrade-wise for them, Mercedes. Yeah. So I think they'll do something hopefully pretty special. But also, you know, for you, Aston Martin.
Yeah, of course. Because they're newfound fanboy.
Exactly. Now let's go to Ferrari, because you did have a good week.
We had a great. Well. We nearly had a brilliant week.
Well, you did, and then the results changed, and suddenly Sainz is nowhere near where he was. And
unfair.
It's so frustrating, isn't it? It does feel like it feels like you can only celebrate the results so much from the races because you just never know what's going to happen in terms of.
Yeah.
Mate, tell me another sport where you celebrate something and then they change the result 4 or 5 hours later. Like it's something that needs to be seriously looked at, where they need to go right. Even if it's half an hour after the end of the race, everything has to be ticked and confirmed by then, because then people will still be engaged.
There's a deadline. There's a deadline.
We're talking 6 hours
I've
after
gone to
a
bed
race.
and I've woken up and something's happened. I don't understand.
It's not right, and you also you then end up resenting watching the race because you think, well, why did I bother getting involved with this when they're changing it after? Yeah. I'm not anti the idea of like track limits and being caught for that thing. I'm not anti that. I think that's the right thing. Yeah. But do it in the right way. Yeah. What are your views on this?
I mean, to be honest, the other thing is you say it as a fan, it puts you off. As a driver, it makes you detest the officials.
I bet.
And I feel so sorry for a lot of these guys because, okay, the F1 situation's a bit different. They're professionals, but a lot of officials in other forms of motorsport aren't actually professional. And and they have to deal with this, and it's something that no one likes. But they need to find a solution. And F1 here could really take the charge because they have the technology, the resources, they have everything. They could come up with a really good solution. There's actually a solution we're testing in sports cars at the minute, which seems to be working pretty well, where we have GPS sensors on the cars. And it actually triggers in race control and lets you know on an inboard marshalling system when you've gone over the track limit.
So and that's instant.
And that's instant.
Genius.
And then you have a limit of 5 per hour in the car. And then it resets. Now, in a sports car, it's a lot easier to go off track than it is in a Formula One car because the cars ride the curbs much better.
Yeah.
But something like that,
100%.
That would just make it so much easier if the driver knows immediately and then they can adapt. It's just finding out afterwards because I've had it before with people where after a safety car, I was right behind them. And they just drove off the track to stay in front of me, but they never got a penalty.
Yeah,
and you just get
so
so
wound
plenty
up. Of complaining on the radios back and forth was like, okay, if you're going to penalise me, Lewis, if you're going to penalise me, don't forget Lando went off here and he went off here,
and then Lando's going, well, don't forget him, and they're all just snitching on each other.
And to be fair, they didn't actually catch all of the penalties. Hence why the grid changed so much at the end of the race.
And that's the thing. We know we don't like. No one likes track limits. Let's be perfectly honest about it. But if the rule was the same and was consistent for everyone, the fans and the drivers and the teams, we wouldn't mind it. Yeah. It just has to be applied in the same way.
And quickly.
Exactly.
Like that sounds genius, that doing it quicker, the GPS thing. I think, we need to find a way to do that, Max. It's 100%. Not right.
Obviously, Leclerc coming off the 800th podium in Austria there. Science's first win was at Silverstone. So how are you feeling in terms of...
Yeah.
Because you had a good week. You had a really good week in terms of pace.
It was a good track for us, as well. I think Mercedes... Red Bull, see you later.
Bye-bye.
I think Mercedes and Ferrari could have a really interesting fight this weekend. I do think Mercedes, assuming that their new upgrades work as well as they hope that they work, I think Mercedes will be a touch quicker. I don't think we'll see a Ferrari on a podium, but maybe
you should be ahead of Aston Martin.
Again, it depends what happens with Aston Martin's upgrades, but really, those 3 cars could be very, very, very close to each other.
Do you know, there's only one thing I can see as a potential Ferrari weakness, is what we got going on up here.
Yeah.
If we get a bit of rain halfway through, the more pit stops that come in, you guys don't have the best rep
your
for that.
Your pit stops, double stacking was really bad.
I wanted it to be sick.
And somehow you still had a good weekend. But even then, I was speaking to Abby about this on the Monday show. She was like, Ferrari had a really good weekend. I was like, yes, but they tried not to. They really tried not to have a good weekend. That double stack, they were going in slow motion. And then you look at Max, who's pitting for the fastest lap, and I'm thinking they're going to chill here 3 seconds. There's no stress, no need to go 2.4.
Yeah, 2.4.
So they just do it in their sleep. They almost sleepwalk into the pit lane.
There was no need for a double stack there as well. That was the weird thing. I don't know why they double stacked it. It's bizarre. Double stack on the safety car. I didn't know what was going on. But yeah, as you mentioned, rain. As it stands, we could see a little bit of rain on qualifying Saturday, maybe into Sunday. Who knows? It's very interesting, but it does always miss out. But you were talking about the rain here as well. That completely changes things, particularly at the circuit, right?
It's very, very difficult, this track in the rain. For whatever reason here, because we don't have the same surface on all the circuits around the calendar, and for whatever reason, the surface here really holds the water. So when you get heavy rain, it's very, very difficult with aquaplaning, and it becomes a bit of a lottery. And then even when it dries up, though, even when you think, it looks okay to go on slicks, it's not. Still so slippery.
Yeah.
But then the irony is, in the dry, this surface is like one of the grippiest places you'll ever go to.
Yeah.
So it's really, really weird. So to be honest,
if it does start pouring down, and I mean bucketing, who does the favourites become?
Whoever.
Do you think the Red Bull's still in control?
Becomes strategy, I guess, then, doesn't it?
Whoever's brave enough to keep their foot down on the straight, to be honest with you. I mean, the Wellington straight gets really bad for aquaplaning, and Woodcote Corner right here as well. It gets really, really tricky.
Interesting.
And so, honestly, I don't know, but I think it's going to become a bit of a survival if it gets like that.
Obviously, Alpine as well. Where do we start with Ocon? I mean, this guy is penalty on penalty on penalty on penalty. This guy takes penalties for the penalties he's taken because he's taken the penalties incorrectly. It's just insane. It really is. Obviously, Gasly
We're laughing,
just
but you're not even joking.
scraping it. But this is not the first time it's happened with him.
No,
That's the funny
not.
thing about it. So this is something that is a regular occurrence. Almost this is his thing.
He got 30 seconds after the race, didn't he?
After taking
2014.
penalties in the race. So I thought
It's a
he'd
joke, mate. Like,
I walked away from the race thinking, if anyone's done all the penalties, it's Ocon.
yeah,
He's done it.
1,200 truck limits
He's
later.
done his time, for sure. Gasly snuck into 10th. But Alpine overall, I mean, to have one car in the top 10 is not really the aim. So disappointing. Do you see anything for them on this track?
No, they're just a bit flat at the
They
minute,
have gone
aren't
flat,
they? You
they
know,
have.
it's just you don't. It's almost like watching a football club when you know the manager's about to go, which you probably felt with Chelsea
Yes.
towards the end of this year. You know,
Very much so.
Sorry to bring that up,
Yeah.
but honestly, it just feels very flat. It feels like you can't see a direct light at the end of the tunnel, and it must be demotivating for them when you see how well Aston Martin are going. Fanboy.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, I don't see any changes here, if I'm perfectly honest.
and McLaren on the way back as well. That's
That's
the
about
thing.
to mention
Exactly.
them, yeah.
We could, see, you
Bring
know,
him in.
they could leapfrog him.
Well, Lando's having a really good time at the moment. He's
Two great
He
races,
got
man.
driver of the day, finished in 5th. I thought it could have gone to him or Perez, but he got it and deservedly so.
And
Lando's flying right now.
And even Piastri as well, you know,
Yeah.
even in the recent races, he's finding some form that he's learning, he's getting through the rookie phase, you know.
Yeah.
I think they're becoming quite exciting.
Yeah. So for McLaren though, is this going to be a humbler? Because this track is quick.
Yeah.
So those quick cars now, they might say, hey, slow down there, buddy. Go back to normal now. Back
I mean,
into
the Red Bull ring,
midfield.
the Red Bull ring, you don't really have the high-speed corners. It's
Yeah.
a very low grip surface, completely different animal to this. You know, they're good in Canada. Again, Canada's very, very different to this. Yeah, it could possibly be. I mean, we'll have to wait and see, but yeah, you could be right there.
Yeah. And they have so many fans. I was surprised how many McLaren fans there were last year when I came. Just orange hats everywhere. More than Mercedes,
Yeah.
I'd say,
Yeah,
to be honest.
big
Like,
team.
there was a lot of Lewis fans, but particularly for team like McLaren, there was an incredible
Massive
amount
team,
of fans.
though.
It was and with such history as well. So that's obviously going to have a little impact. I know they always say, oh yeah, we can hear. Can you hear in the car or not? Tell me
no,
the truth.
You can't. Not a chance.
You can't hear
Not a chance.
anybody?
No,
You can't hear
it. You cannot hear anything.
No.
No, you can't hear anything, unfortunately.
And thank God they can't hear that. That would put them off, mate.
But I tell you what.
I don't know. I don't know.
But I promise
I think that would probably be me if I actually was here on Sunday, to be fair. Please win! We need the knife.
But honestly, when you're actually like, if you do have a safety car or something like that, and you got all your brake biases sorted, and you got everything done, and it's kind of just maintaining the temperature, and you don't have any active work, you do have a look around, and you do see the crowds, and you do think to yourself, oh wow, I mean, like, you know,
This is insane.
Yeah. When we do our big sports car races, we get crowd numbers which are quite similar to the Formula One guys, which sell out every race now, and it does make you get a little bit of a, you know, adrenaline. You
Boost,
feel it.
yeah. Awesome.
And obviously AlphaTauri we have to talk about because De Vries is coming under some pressure. I know, man. But Christian Horner has come out and kind of, you know, pushed that to the wayside and said we're not really looking at
He's
the
backed him
moment.
up, hasn't he? Yeah, recently.
Are you buying that?
I mean, look. We, as I told you before, I know Nick as a mate, and I've been teammates with him in sports cars and everything. I know the guy well, and also I've known him since I was 15.
Wow.
And yeah, I know how good the guy is, and he's just the level of Formula One and the adaptability you need, because it's so different. It's very, very difficult. But and I think that he is getting better, but he's making silly mistakes, you know. And I think that it's something which is always quite rare from him in the past. He never used to make these, so he's driving like a man under pressure. But honestly, something still gives me a bit of hope, because I know exactly how good that guy is. And, you know, I've seen it firsthand, and I know the one thing I can say about Nick, his biggest strength by far is his work ethic. Is untouchable.
It's so interesting.
It's by far the biggest, outside of the car, I've never seen a driver work as hard as him.
Really?
And
what is that? Just putting the time on a simulator?
the time into
fitness, everything.
I just remember, like, when he came to sports cars, you know, the sports cars was my gig, and I'd done it for the last 10, 15 years or whatever, and he was quite new into it. And once he realised that in the debriefs and everything that I was knew about the cars and stuff, he then tried and used me like a sponge, just to try and take everything that I knew specifically about the cars. Because obviously they're different animals to Formula cars, and then he adapted and was absolute rocket ship.
Yeah.
So I know he's got the ability, but he's running out of time.
This is a sport that doesn't have much patience.
No, and the other thing, I was at the Super Formula test in Fuji in Japan 2 weeks ago, where Liam Lawson was driving, and he's obviously the man being lined up.
Not just Ricciardo, but Lawson as
And
well.
man, in that test, he was phenomenal, and he's doing a phenomenal job out there this year. So,
do you think Liam Lawson's almost definitely the next one?
Yeah, 100%.
He's got to be in Formula One next year.
100%. With what he's doing in Super Formula and what he's done in other categories he's jumped into, he's got to be considered for next year. You know?
And because he's under that Red Bull.
He's under
so they
the Red
won't
Bull
want to lose a talent like that.
He's been under the Red Bull stable, I think, since 2018 or 19. And honestly, he's got this crazy stat. I think he's got into 5 categories and won his first race. And I mean, it's a completely
ridiculous
stat. Yeah,
because you're meant to be taking.
I think it's 5. I might need to correct me on that, but it's a ridiculous number.
Is it Formula? So which categories?
I think it was Formula 4, Formula 3,
Formula 2,
Formula 2. I'm not sure if he won his first race in F2. We'd have to check that. Super Formula he did, and DTM he did as well.
But going in at the first race
up against people that have been
like
doing
you were
it
just saying, one of the hardest things is to adapt.
Yes,
and he's going in and winning straight. I'll just win.
Yeah,
imagine if he did that in Formula 1.
I mean, he went.
Can you imagine if the first race rocks up wins in an AlphaTauri?
I mean, he's gone to Japan and he's gone into a culture where he doesn't speak the language. He's working in a completely different environment, a completely different everything, rules set, tactics, etc., and won his first race.
Wow.
I mean, that was incredible.
Do you think other teams will be sniffing around?
100%.
If Christian
They'll
Horner,
never let him go. They're surely Red Bull are not letting him go.
Honestly, he looks
because he's too good to be a reserve driver.
He's starting to become a bit generational. You know, he's starting to get the same rep coming in as Piastri had, and obviously we know Piastri did F4,
Piastri had
F2.
Everybody after
exactly.
him.
I think Lawson's going to start getting there quite soon.
Interesting.
The plot thickens. Netflix is going to be good. Obviously, we have at Haas as well. I mean, they're just lukewarm, aren't they?
I mean, Nico Hülkenberg, man.
Oh, actually,
he's having an unbelievable time.
Haas aren't lukewarm. Alfa Romeo lukewarm. But Haas with Hulkenberg now. Hulkenberg is smashing it.
Mate, it's awesome to see. It's so cool to see because it's quite rare in the sport that you get a bit of like a guy that's lower down and not like in an anomaly have an incredible time. But not just one race. Like he's kind of he's stringing it together in a really.
It's almost like he's building block by block.
I'm loving
his
it.
evil plan to take over Formula One. Like, he's like, listen, I'm just gonna just take my time, just little thing by little.
Take over Formula One, like the what's the villain from Minions? Groot? No. Groot. Yeah, I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Team principal's got the voice for it as well.
Good as well,
Magnus, on the other hand, having a little bit of a stinker.
Yeah, a little bit,
Yeah, but I think Magnussen will come back.
He will, 100%.
Yeah, and I think also you can see that what I've seen so far is the dynamic of them seems to be working. I think Hulkenberg just hit a bit of form right now. You know, it's like it's like in football when you have strike partners, one of them scoring for fun and one of them's had a bit of a drought. I don't think Magnussen's doing a bad job. I think that Hulkenberg's just doing a mega job.
Yeah, nice.
But he finished with an engine failure, and then obviously Magnussen. So that's why when I looked at the grid, I thought that's a bit disappointing. But then you remember the qualifying, you think there was so much hope there.
Yeah.
And it's almost similar to what happened with Lando a few weeks back, and then obviously now last week he put together a good performance. So it's almost like Hulkenberg is owed a good strong finish in a race now on a Sunday because his qualifying one lap pace has been ridiculous.
Yeah,
so,
I'm loving it. Loving it.
100%. Obviously, let's go to Alfa Romeo as well. Bottas and just everything at Alfa Romeo right now just seems very quiet.
Just flat.
Yeah.
It's like Alpine. It's just you
There's
don't
no
see
fizz in the drink.
Exactly. It's just a flat Coke.
It's a flat Coke, and I still drink it, but I'd prefer if it had a bit of fizz in it.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's not a huge amount really to say apart from that. Remembering Zhou Guanyu's crash here last year, which was. Do you remember how big that was? I mean. Credit to the Halo, man. That was the last. Anyone that was a critic of the Halo said we were completely wrong. It literally saved Zhou Guanyu's life. And I mean, still, I see the footage of it now, and I get like goosebumps about how like awful that could have been. And thank God he was all right. But hopefully nothing like that happens again.
First corner.
First corner. First lap.
Well, it was actually the straight leading to the corner. I don't know if you remember the shot when they came out of the first corner. You saw the cars coming. You just saw this car upside down.
Just
a shot, you know.
He must have been. I mean, I dread to think how quickly he hit that wall, but like upside down.
Yes.
But I mean, the scariest footage for me is the footage from people's phones where it happens. They're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And people don't react. They don't know how to react.
No.
Like,
I'll tell you what, though,
crazy.
the other testament is over the years we do talk about the safety of the cars and the equipment and stuff like that. But of course, we've had crashes over the year. I don't know if you remember, Jacques Villeneuve had a crash at Melbourne. I think it was 2003, and a marshal died because the car went, parts of the car went through the debris fence. Ooh. So over the years, things have upgraded. Yeah. And even for the spectators and the spectator experience, in a way, it's nice to see that now because they put so much effort into these debris fences, and they managed to stop that car flying through the air, into the crowd. Yeah. And can you imagine what that would have been like?
Yeah, that would have been catastrophic, really.
So not just on the safety side needs not only credit on the cars, but just everything there. 10 out of 10 to the FIA.
Is it more difficult to drive with the halo? Because obviously it does block the center of the view, I guess.
To be honest, and I can say this from a different perspective as well, because I've driven a car with a halo, but I also, sports cars, we have roofs and we've got crash structures in them. And honestly, when you're sitting in there, you start to feel like a little bit seasick and you're like, whoa, this is a bit strange.
Yeah.
But then once you actually get moving, because your eyesight just focuses on where you're going, you don't even know it's there.
It becomes a blur. Yeah,
it becomes a blur.
Yeah.
You don't even know it's there.
I think he'll get a good response, Zhou Guanyu. I think he'll be welcomed quite warmly, and it'd be really nice to see him complete all the laps and just have a nice clean race. That'd be nice to see.
Boss has spoken about the upgrades, noting how previous upgrades have had a good impact, but he's hoping for a dry weekend at Silverstone for the team and can properly see how much impact the upgrades can have on the car and see if the rain comes in, everybody can forget about that.
It'd be just nice if they can just have a nice weekend. I think it's unlikely they'll nick a point, but we'll see.
Obviously, Williams as well.
Alex Albon, man, another guy. It's just amazing. I mean, you must be like pretty impressed with what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, honestly, it's. I had lunch with him last year, and he wasn't best pleased with some of the situations that were going on, and I think we heard that frustration in the radio. Yeah. Especially remember qualifying here last year.
Yep.
Remember the race at Paul Ricard, and now he's clearly they've taken on board and appreciated what he can bring, and I think now the team's coming more around him, and the level he's performing at now is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And not the thing is he's outperforming the car. He's beating cars which are faster than him. And that is ridiculous. So unbelievably difficult.
Yeah.
And he's able to think while he's driving, and you can see that. And honestly, that guy, his stock value, I think we're all talking about potential driver movings and all of that.
Yeah,
he's one.
He's one to watch.
Yes.
Definitely.
100%. I think this being their home Grand Prix as well, and obviously I think it's their 800th Grand Prix that they're celebrating. It says so. That is ridiculously mad. And again, it's another massive historic team as well. I'm looking forward to seeing what Albon can do here, because, like you said, he's outperforming.
And you were saying it's a super high deg track.
Yeah.
Albon's brilliant on the tyres.
Remember Australia a couple of years
I'll never
ago?
forget that. I still think that could go down and run like the top 10 drives ever of all time. It's ridiculous what he did.
And also, he's under nationality, he's Thai, but he spent most of his life living in the UK.
Exactly.
Milton Keynes.
He's got the experience.
Exactly.
He's got the experience. Yeah, 100%. Some fun things as well.
Go on.
Also, I'm expecting a potential new McLaren look to this weekend.
Yeah, they've got a new livery. They've
Please tell me it's true.
It is true. It is true. It looks gorgeous. They have not gone completely wild. It's just more of a little bit of a tip of the hat.
A tease.
But it does look gorgeous. It does look gorgeous.
I'm a massive fan of the silver or chrome livery with Vodafone, and obviously that's the first McLaren car that I can fully attach to.
Hamilton's championship winning car. Yeah.
So
they were
anytime I hear that McLaren are going with this kind of chrome potential, I'm all for it, and I'll be buzzing to see that. And of course, Brad Pitt is also going to be racing with us this weekend as well. In between practice sessions, is it?
Yeah, I think because they want it to be full, don't they? With all the crowds here.
I mean, he's got one of the garages in pit lane is reserved for his character in the movie.
So cool,
mad. So he's going to get his whole. Is he going to get his own team and everything? He's got to make it realistic, isn't it?
What they're using an adapted Formula 2 car basically.
Okay.
Which is still pretty
quick,
Formula 2 cars go.
Yeah.
They really go. And so he's going to be going around doing some filming for it. And I know from a few guys who have been running him, he's actually been doing a lot of practice. And I can't say too much, but he's actually been pretty decent for somebody who's got no background in motorsport at all. He's doing a very, very good job, and he's seriously applied himself to it as well. So honestly, just hearing that and hearing the feedback I got from the people running him, I'm actually really excited to see this.
I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we were looking up what the film's about, and he plays like an old F1 driver that's coming out of retirement to help a young driver on his way up. So it's a bit like quite a cool concept for a film. And look, I mean, every F1 fan is going to be straight in the cinema to watch that.
Just find out his teammate is like Mick Schumacher. Wow, this has come full circle. He is helping the youth.
And real Brad Pitt outqualifies Mick Schumacher.
Can you imagine? Well, let's wrap up with predictions for this race. Obviously, that's going to drastically change as soon as qualifying finishes, but it is what it is. I'll start with you, bro.
Red Bull 1-2, Max Checo. I think they will be. The car is just better than everybody else's car. Max is a different animal, and Sergio needs to be a different animal. He can't. If he doesn't make Q3, that would be 5 in a row that he doesn't make it. He has to make Q3, and he has to go and get second place.
Yeah.
And I would really like to see Lewis Hamilton do a job, come in third place. I don't think
Ferraris.
I don't think we'll see any Ferraris on the podium this week, unfortunately.
I'm actually going to agree with you. That's my top 3 as well.
Same.
Just to get out of the way. I
Go
do
on, mix it up. Mix it up, Richard.
How can you not? I mean, you know, it's. I think Max is just, you can't not bet against him.
First
at the minute,
win it will
let's
be then.
honest.
Damn.
I think that you know what you were saying about Checo is really interesting because it goes back to what I spoke about on the podcast with you a few weeks ago. Just remember, this would be his 5th time not in Q3. Bottas made Q3 in every attempt for Mercedes.
Insane.
You know, and when you look at Lewis, who's doing the job all the time, Bottas was constantly there backing him up.
Yeah.
Okay, Max has the car advantage at the minute, but he might not. But then, to be honest, I'm going to go for Alonso. Newfound fanboy. But the reason I'm doing that, I'm going back to Jeddah at the beginning of the year because Jeddah, for me, with the high-speed sections that you had with the S's and everything, Alonso was very competitive there. And I think that, okay, I know Red Bull have upgraded the car and stuff, but it shows that their car is very good in that situation. So yeah, Alonso, it's going to be 2 Red Bulls and Alonso.
Nice, I like it.
No Hamilton, pain. My heart bleeds.
Painful,
breaks.
Chin, 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 chin.
100%. Sad. Well, listen, guys, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you smash up the likes. It's been a great preview and an absolute pleasure to be here in person.
So cool.
It's just breathtaking.
So cool.
Honestly.
Big thanks to the BRDC for letting us do this here.
So, guys, on Track GP, we're going to be here at Silverstone. We're going to be here for obviously the practice. We're going to be here for qualifying and the race. So you do not want to miss that. Make sure you're locked in and subscribed.